Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of one of the most incredible people I have ever met. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Thank you very much, Gertrude. My name is Robert Chelsea. I live in the Los Angeles, California area. I'm here as a result of receiving I was in an auto accident approximately 11 years ago in 2013. As a result of that accident, a drunk driver hit me on the freeway and my car blew up. As I was in a coma for the first 6 months and in the hospital about a year and a half. Through that experience, I was also amputated on a couple of fingers and toes. My lips were burned off, part of my tongue. And from top to bottom, of course, in an explosion, I was burned pretty intensely. As a result of spending about 3.5 to 4 years recovering from the burns, then I was introduced to an opportunity to be a face transplant recipient, which meant I would receive a full face transplant from top to bottom, head to chin, which would eventually give me lips and so on. So that's kind of how I became a face transplant recipient. I happen to be the first Black in the world to receive a full face transplant. And I'm also greater than 10 years older than anyone else that has received the cutoff date for cutoff age for a face transplant was 50 years old. However, I was already 64 before we began negotiations on receiving this face transplant. The reason why I had a face transplant versus plastic surgery covering my lips and gums to protect my teeth and so on is because all the dermatologists and plastic surgeons felt that there would not be any control over my lips. In other words, they wouldn't move. It would just be a flap to cover them, but I wouldn't have any control or movement because the nerve endings would not be installed or blood vessels and things like that. The option, which is very rare, but the option was to actually have a face transplant. So as a result, I did have this face transplant in 2019 in July. And so it's been now almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in July that I've actually received a full face transplant. There's a big difference in a transplant from a face versus a liver, lung, kidney, heart, bone marrow, stem cells, so on. Basically, by the way, one eye can actually replace 8 other eyes. So the difference with me is uh, you don't take one organ out and put another one in. Instead, my whole face has been stripped, and the donor's face was stripped. The donor happened to be in another state altogether, and that donor's face had to be stripped and then procured and brought over to me or to the hospital that I was in, and then the blood vessels, the nerve endings, the muscles, all of the tendons had to be tied together, obviously in a very intricate way. Much that I experienced as a result of that. Obviously, you're in a coma for 6 months. There's various things that have been revealed in that, and as a result of being in the hospital so long, I had quite a few surgeries, way over 30 just even in the first 6 months. And that's not including the amputations or the face transplant. All that said, uh, God has seen fit to make my experience one of a glorious one, not just a memorable, but there is no regrets as a result of what I have gone through. You can imagine the pain and the discomfort that would be included in all of these surgeries and the adjustments, the medicines, etc. But God seemed to cover me with such a blanket that, in spite of what you might call a valley experience, I discovered that God can provide lilies in our valley. And though I walked through these shadows that would appear to be death, I didn't have to fear any evil. I didn't have to have the challenges that you would imagine one would have. And so I'm ever so grateful that my experience, naturally you get into a situation that is uncomfortable or frightening, the first thing you want to do is try to get out of it, climb out of it, run out of it, call for help. But God was able to give me such a peace in my condition that instead of asking for help, I could just appreciate the comfort that He had provided for me. And so it reminds me of so many others that may have gone through similar experiences, like Daniel being thrown in the lion's den. He didn't necessarily do anything to cause that kind of experience, but he didn't complain because the comfort that was provided by our Heavenly Father was far, far exceeded any comfort you could have or even in our imagination. The same with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You can go on and on. How many people were in jail and they rejoiced and sang? Well, how could all that happen? Because God has a way of providing a comfort that far exceeds any imagination that we would think would be undesirable. So that's kind of where, if I could use this as a base, that's where I'm coming from.
Robert, thank you so much for coming online and sharing this powerful story with us today. I'm going to invite your Director of Development and Strategy, Kane Nicholas, to join us. Kane, welcome. Please introduce yourself. Tell us briefly how you got involved with Robert Chelsea's case and his foundation.
Well, it's a pleasure, a great pleasure to meet you, Gertrude. Thank you for the opportunity to be here on your platform. How I've gotten involved, again, my name is Kane Nicholas, and how I got involved with the Robert Chelsea Foundation is with the observance of the disparities that happen in the African American community, as well as the African community, and being a person who has been in the nonprofit sector, the economic development sector, and as well as the investment and financial arena, it's critically important that we support each other when it comes to developing messages of help, hope, but more so resilience, character, and faith. And so I serve as the director of development and strategy. As Robert has just told you, he's been through many different experiences, and then through those experiences, we are looking to trailblaze when it comes to awareness as we climb.
Thank you so much. Now, Robert, how has been receiving a face transplant changed your daily life?
The well, I think my life was changed mainly when I became burned because I looked like a Halloween mask, and the experience of a burn survivor, you have no lips, you have no my part of my tongue was burned off also, and so all the discoloration is not very attractive. And certainly, if you're in business, to present yourself in such a way, calling on new customers and so on, became quite challenging. But through it all, it just seemed that if I'm going through this, I could now have much a greater appreciation for so many others that have been burned. And that's kind of how we started the foundation because individuals have been burned up, lye has been poured on them, electrocutions, uh, various fires and coming from barbecues and all kind of different injuries, birth defects, and so on. So it allowed me to see that I'm not just a burn survivor, but there are so many others that are in the same diaspora. I mean, disabled diaspora. So as a result of that, and then of course being an amputee, now I realize what they go through and what kind of regiment they have to be on and their personal experiences. Uh, and then of course now, as a face transplant recipient, I realized what the transplant community has to go through, the medical challenges, the disparity involved in so many different areas. By me being the first black, that lets you know that there were so many others. There was only, it's less than 50 in the whole world that has had a face transplant, but all of them were white. And, and the cutoff day was 50 years old, but the diversity just isn't there. Even in the New England Journal of Medicine, it indicates uh, the external signs to look for are pink, white, pale, red face, blue lips, white knuckles. Well, none of that applies to me or anyone of color.
Mhm.
So these kind of disparities mean that you can't find or detect early detection of a possible rejection for a transplant. That's alarming because the statistics show us that a great number of black and brown in particular individuals have 3 times the need to replace their kidneys. And so we don't have the donors to do that, then those
Mm.
individuals can't find themselves back to work, if you will, a normal life. Their self-esteem could possibly be very low. The contributor factor of their household obviously would be a major challenge, and other caregiving requirements. So it wasn't easy to discount the idea of having something where we could have a catalyst, a collaborative effort, a place where clear empathy could be provided because we've been there, done that. See, we know what's involved, even as the things that you discovered. It seems like everywhere you step, you turn around and find where it can be viable, a major improvement for countries. Hey,
Mm.
ideas that come out of your head, Gertrude, it's like there is not a limit of what still can be provided and created, see,
Yeah.
for our individuals that are underserved. So
So,
I,
you've become an advocate for organ donation. What are some of the common misconceptions that people have about organ donation, and why aren't more people of color donating, do you think?
well, there's many misconceptions, and they're not all conceptions, but the facts are that the face that's black has a major resistance, an automatic resistance in every country.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's really okay. Uh, every nationality has been partial to their own. The challenge is when men take on the acquisition to discredit and to denounce and to undergird others. Why make such an effort to hold back someone rather than making the emphasis on your own personal progress and don't inhibit or limit others from making their own? That's why you can be successful as you are because uh, the limitations are only in your own ability. And as long as you have free will, you can create all kinds. Any invention that's done on the northern side can be done on the southern or eastern or western. So that is one reason why I think there's this misconceptions uh, that have developed. It's only because they're convinced that their resources are less. And that's a fact, that the resources are less because of the special emphasis on hindering another man. It's so selfish, greedy, prideful. And as a result of that, that is, I use this term and I will continue as long as God allows me, iniquity. You see, iniquity is not inequity, something that's uneven or not level. But iniquity is the unforgiving uh, attitude of a man's heart. Iniquity means you don't want to, you're not going to, because you just don't like to. But you'll do it for the next person. So as a result of that, I mean, how many times should I forgive a man? 7? No, you forgive him 7 times 7. Well, I'm not going to. So that's iniquity. You got your own set of rules, your own standard, and you're not. And so, unfortunately, blacks don't have that appreciation or respect. And so, that's not a concept; that is a fact. And so, that's one of the motives for me to to at least try to, as tenderly as possible, because if you can't catch a man's heart and if you reform it, there's a Jeremiah said, circumcise the foreskin of your heart. You see, that's where it stands. Uh, and so this is what I hope that we do in a loving way, overcome evil with good, because evil is present and it's natural for us. So that's a reason why uh, that we have such a challenge. Men work against other men, not with or for, but against them, instead of working for themselves and building more with and for themselves.
So let me throw a question to you, Kane. How have you applied your financial expertise to support Robert Chelsea's advocacy for organ donation through innovative funding and resource allocation?
That's an amazing question. Thank you. It's actually very interesting because when you have a founder or person like Robert, there's two things that are going on, and this as Robert was talking about the disparities and the inequities, there's two things going on. There's the amplifying what God has given to Robert to make sure that it is uh, made aware. But then there's also the post um, transplant life that Robert, as a founder, has to survive. And so, there's his health that needs to be managed. Um, just as if you were to have a talent on a global level where they need, uh, nutrition and health and things of that nature. So, wellness for Robert Chelsea, the person, is very different. And so, how I it- foresee the strategy is keeping both him as the person as well as the foundation. And so using the or having those two stories at the same time is what's critical to attracting people who have either been affected by some inequity, whether it be long time waits or, you know, sorry, or to have, medical bias, right? These are things that we're constantly fighting and pushing against as an agency, but
Mhm.
but creating the avenues for large foundations and endowments, as well as corporations, meeting them where they're at as well, when it comes to, in addition to global citizenship as well as a corporation. And so having an interface to appropriately receive finances as well as resources or in-kind donations is where our team focuses on. And having been in the financial arena, we know that our world economies move very differently because there is a lot of capital in the universe. And I personally believe that there's no shortage of financial resources when there are people who want to understand how they can get through their own challenges. And so just interweaving um, Robert's story, his daily, weekly, monthly, and annual experience with a foundation
Mhm.
creates an opportunity to amplify his story.
Now, Robert, to go back to you and the experience that you've had, could you explain the significance of eye donations and how one donor can potentially save or improve the lives of up to 8 lives?
And that's just the beginning because there's so many parts of our body that are useful to someone else. The 8 eyes can actually, the cornea, the pupils, all of these there's are useful to someone else. And even the military has, the U.S. military has over 300 candidates for face transplant currently. You know, how many other countries have candidates in a similar fashion as a result of whatever war, and not to mention the car accidents, the household activities, and so on.
Yeah.
So the need is critical. Every portion of our body can be useful. I didn't imagine having lips again. God saw fit to let them get burned out. How do you get lips again? They don't grow back. Certain parts can grow, but not the lips. Our dermis, the external portion of our bodies. By the way, my hands, these are cadaver skin. This was placed on immediately after my burns. Someone, his name was Richard Rogus, my good Samaritan, he tried to help me out the car as it was burning. And
Mm.
he said he tried to take my arms, but my arms were melting. So
Oh,
the cadaver skin was placed on. What if that wasn't available? So
yeah,
research
yeah,
is, uh,
Robert.
yeah, it's so much that can, these nails don't grow the same way my nails used to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got hair on my face. I didn't, well, I wore a beard before, but this is the donor's face. And this hair is a donor's hair. Uh, so
It's
you
just
can,
incredible.
Here's the line here. You can see it. I don't know if you
Yeah, very visible. Now, Robert, what kind of support and resources does donorsdream.org offer to potential donors and their families?
So potential donors mainly need, like everything else, understanding. See, uh, obviously they need finances. They need a place to stay,
Yeah.
pre-surgery, and post-surgery. Oftentimes, whatever surgery that needs to be done, there may not be a specialist in their particular city or area. So they have to move or at least temporarily be somewhere where they can actually be housed and cared for, so that uh, their uh, their pursuit for the surgery itself and the recovery period will be adequate so that they can move on. These are resources. That's what you and I are doing. We're collaborating on your expertise, your research, and it must be grounded by your love for God's people and not for some other great mechanical or profitable intent. It can be, you can add it to if you want, but when it gets down to it, the efforts and sacrifice has to be because you're caring about the precious people of God. And so that is one of the sources is being available for uh, anyone that may have a need. Now, there are mental challenges. Your family may not agree with your decisions, your efforts, what you're going through, may not understand, may not be prepared for it. That is an aspect, having experience with that from the burns itself, from the amputations that I had to make a decision to receive, as well as the face transplant. All the consideration that goes into that, as well as establishing a foundation to support and believe in that same cause. So we try to provide a myriad of services, and I don't think we're limited because wherever our heart can be pure, I think that there'll be a contribution that'll be worthwhile. But so far, it's been for also limb replacement. Individuals, they have lost limbs, no legs, no
Yeah.
arms. They don't have a voice for themselves. And
Mm.
so, well, we don't have much of a voice, but we have to do the best we can. And so I think that's really, we've been adaptable thus far. I know that and Kane is helping and Bill Preston. There's so many that help with structuring your businesses that you formed wouldn't exist today if it had not had some degree of foundational structure. That
Yeah.
yeah. So I know that that's in place, but I don't consider myself a builder. I do consider the circumstances that God provides, and I hope that when I do respond to whatever the inquiry is, that that we can uh, make a difference.
Mm. So, Robert, how do you think we can better support the disabled diaspora in their needs for transplants? You're very fortunate in that you're living in the United States. I'm from Zimbabwe in Africa. These kind of services do not exist. How
Yeah.
can we better support those people?
Well, they actually do exist, uh, just in small numbers. They're, you might say, hidden pioneers. Uh, like there's a organization called World Burn Society, and
Mhm.
we meet every 2 years uh, somewhere in the world, and and virtually everybody there is mangled in some kind of way, and they come from all parts of the world uh, to intermingle, to gain knowledge, to get support, social support, mental support, to to be free to Oakland. I can send you a lot of pictures of various people that we get together and have such a good time. Even all the music, the people, we were there for like 3 or 4 or 5 days. Well, and they have, dance and they have music and they have exercise. And all of it is participated with individuals that are burned. So they're all free to do and sing and dance and talk and joke, as they would. And the same with there's a transplant games. It was in Alabama last year, and that again has people from all over the world. They team up. They play basketball. They play uh, different, all kinds of different events, swinging, and they come together, and they're all related to the transplant community, the family as well as them. So there are organizations like that where they're just free for 3 or 4 or 5 days to hang out, to do whatever they eat all together. We're talking 700, 800, sometimes 2,000, 3,000 people. So
Wow.
there are, that's what we can offer. Because so much is coming our way. Once you get in, injured, or, John, look at you, all the different factors. Every time you go back to Zimbabwe, you come up with some other idea of how to bring this to the table. So those resources are there. We just have to do a much better job of marketing and, of course, advocating for them to be household names versus having to travel from one state or country to get that. Like my face transplant. Well, in Boston, there's only about 2% black in the whole state. So, and 90% white, about 6% Asian. So, as a result of that, when they found my donor space, it was in another state altogether, not in the New England area. And not only that, I live way on the West Coast. So, but God has a way, no matter what, He's still opening doors. Nothing is shut out to those that have an ear to hear and a heart that's open.
It's just wonderful. To go back to you, Kane, what strategies have you found to be most effective for fostering collaboration between government entities, nonprofits, and private sectors under your leadership?
So I wanted to just dovetail what Robert was saying in terms of the impact and exposure that he has within the U.S. and how to engage. First is to contact us through our website, robertchelsea.org, foundation.org, and then also Donors Dream, which is one of the ways to connect with us. And within that, as we have, as I mentioned before, there's so many networks that the Robert Chelsea Foundation engages with, corporations, banks, non-governmental agencies. And as they are trying to support a specific organ at times, the Chelsea Foundation is somewhat of an umbrella conduit where we've been invited to speak at the United Nations. There's been conversations that have happened with the Robert Chelsea Foundation to, in South Africa. And so there are global conversations. And so as Robert was saying, there really is a lot, in these disparities, and obviously tens, if not hundreds of organizations have been formed to do that. And so networking effectively is really important, and having a unified voice. To answer your question around, if you could repeat it again, that'd be helpful as well.
Yeah, so my question was around, the strategies that you are using to move things forward. What strategies have you found to be most effective for fostering collaboration between government entities, nonprofits, and the private sector, under your leadership?
Well, I've been on the team for about a month and a half. But I bring a wealth of expertise around understanding financial markets, how money moves behind the scenes, whether through endowments or uh, asset management business. And so, well, how do those two, uh, how do those two mix, right? And that's
Yes.
where the understanding how corporations, the themes that will happen with national and global organizations. As you know, there's political elections and ideologies change, and so
Yes.
being able to adequately pivot to meet those challenges is where, again, if one door closes, another one is bound to open. And so
Right.
constantly on the being on the lookout and being attuned to those conversations. At the
Mhm.
same time, we're all part of the human race, and someone, regardless of where you work, what community you live in, you've been to a hospital,
Yeah.
you or some type of clinic or some type of healthcare place, and so there is in having those conversations, you know, there's just so much. So
Yes.
insurance, so that's where it's not very difficult to have a conversation. It's just
Yeah.
understanding the willingness. But at the same time, we're excited about opening up conversations with artificial intelligence. We're excited about the technologies and the medical breakthroughs that have happened,
Yes.
through Robert in the Chelsea Foundation raising awareness of certain issues. And so it's in a very exciting time that gives us the opportunity to interface with big pharma, with medical or bioscience technology and organizations, as well as the platforms to engage with um, governmental agencies and things of that nature.
Mm.
Because if someone is elected, we hope that they are praying, but also helping to raise the quality of life for their citizens as well as their employees if they are employing large amounts of people. So there's many different facets. um, it's an amazing challenge. We're always looking for more people to join this movement, and so we want to thank you for helping us to amplify who we are and what we're looking to do in this human race.
Yeah, it's an amazing project. Robert, I want to go back to you and talk a little bit about resilience, character, and faith. How has your faith played a role in your journey before and after your face transplant?
Uh, I'll answer that gladly. I'd like to talk a little bit about character, if you don't mind, first,
Mhm.
because it's not my character. Mine is not worth 10 cents. For that matter, no one else's is. But the character of our Heavenly Father, His standard, is where I want to go. So that uh, it's just good. I don't want to draw attention to Robert and the way he's going or what he stands for, because it comes and it goes. I might be in one way today and alter it. That's what they call alterations and
Yeah.
or amendments and all that. But I think God's standard has one that's worthwhile to pursue, and that form of character can infiltrate the hardest of hearts. So uh, that is my intentions is to present myself as a living sacrifice, a living example. Paul used the term a living epistle that's read of all men. See? You can read them.
Mhm.
Why? Because of their kindness, their tenderness, their gentleness. See? And so I think that's where we want to make sure that is established, at least among ourselves.
Yeah.
That way, there is no doubt of whether you're in the front or back of what you're seeing in that individual. I think there's a man that said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror and asking him to change his ways.
Yeah.
If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and change. So that character not change to what you want, but change to what God desires you to be. Oh man, it's far better, more profitable, and it penetrates more hearts than anything you and I could provide.
Yeah.
There's no marketing material, no song or dance that could get the attention that God's heart could give to another person. And it could be far more permanent. See? And so that's what I think that's important in terms of having a character that can withstand the times. See? And in terms of my faith, uh, I know it's a very easy word to use, is faith or trust or belief, but your faith can change, and a lot of other things can change.
Yeah.
So I would like to get to the point where my faith, if you will, is grounded on something worthwhile, and that takes time and experience. You just don't. People can say, "Oh well, all we need to do is love one another." You don't know how to. You can't hardly love your neighbor, your own relative. And yet, oh yeah, we're just gonna love. No, you're not ever gonna get there. See, the love has to come from what mom gives you. Now that is legitimate. You can hold on to it. How much more can we hold on to the love of God? So as we enter in and start focusing and appreciating and checking him out, then we see that he is worth trusting. I can begin to have faith in what he does and where he goes.
Yeah.
I have fortunately had enough experience to know that I can trust him. I can follow him. I'm getting more familiar with his direction, his words, the scriptures. They're opening more up to me. So now this old mud hut, which we call the body or the flesh, it can give up itself and enter into another realm where I can have faith. This doesn't just come, oh, you just have faith in it, believe in it. No, it takes a while for those kind of elements to formulate and solidify itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in moments of doubt or difficulty, Robert, you've been through so much in the last 11 years. What personal beliefs or practices have helped you maintain the resilience to keep going?
The personal belief and trust has been because of the assurance. See, like yourself, if your loved one doesn't remind you they love you and don't do things to display that in a viable way, well, yesterday is yesterday. I need to be consistent in displaying my tender love. God is able to do that for you and me. Daily bread. So it helps to have that, you might call it, blessed assurance. And so as a result of that, now I can walk in faith and a degree of confidence. Now, some would say, well, you need to know your purpose in life. Yeah, what purpose do you have? He created you to hear his voice. Child doesn't know what purpose you have for them. But if they listen to you long enough, stay close enough, you'll guide them day by day. Not, well, I want you to get a doctor one day. No, I want to love you and direct you day by day. And where that ends up, I'll be satisfied. That's the way I see it. And that's why, even in, you might call it a valley experience, I might have been in different challenges. You call them, well, you've been in so much. Yeah, but when you're there, instead of trying to climb out, because that's just natural instinct, how about enjoying the ride? He is never, ever, what father has ever sent their child to a place that they can't comfort them? When you ever needed money, when God or your father takes you to Disneyland or something. So it's the same with God. Yea, though I walk through the dark, I didn't have to wonder why. It's to the point where I'm so glad that I can enjoy Him. See,
Yeah.
it's not because I'm so brave or courageous or and all that, but you know, He gives you such a peace, a rest. You know,
Mm.
there's a scripture that says, "All that labor have a heavy laden, come to me, and I'll give you rest." Well, what
Yeah.
do you mean? You can lay me down, I can go to sleep, no, a peace that passes understanding that man can't comprehend, can't come up with a vocabulary to describe that kind of peace. And so, as I have acquired more and more, wherever you want to take me, I think Bill Wizard said, if London feels this good, just use me until you use me up.
Mr. Kane, let's go back to you. With my last question for you is, what are some of the challenges that you have faced and will face in securing funding for organ donation initiatives? And how have you overcome them as you support Robert's mission?
Thank you for that question. You're asking amazing questions. And one of the challenges that I was not aware of prior to getting closer to the Robert Chelsea Foundation is again managing health. Right, when you're working with the first of the first, there is no blueprint. To navigating that.
Yeah,
Every time that Robert um, has maybe a slight complication or a moderate one. Um, and again, because there's been so much that he's been through, managing the face of the organization, um,
Right.
no pun intended, but to ensure that that's the forefront of it in a business. If the product goes bad, you can or there's challenge with the product, you can get a team around it to fix it up,
Mm.
or to make tweaks and do surveys and other market research, if you will. With
Yes.
Robert, he's a living human being and a testimony, and so there is an urgency to an urgency is in respect for him, the person. And so that is one that's an unsaid rule in the operations of working with a person like Robert
Yeah.
Chelsea. So funding the foundation is, and again, because of the breakthrough things, everything is very expensive. To be quite honest.
Mm.
This is territory that hospitals have not been in before, and it requires a Herculean effort for moderate things. And so that's what I would say. So there's really a challenge. The challenge is balancing the foundation
Mhm.
needs as well as Robert Chelsea needs, because we care about him as a person as well, and he's critically important. And so if he's not well, it may the ability to rearrange, meetings
Mhm.
and speaking engagements. That's where it can become a challenge. With
Yes.
with the advent of technology, just like we're speaking literally a world away,
Mhm.
these things can happen. And so, that again, there's daily, weekly, monthly, and annual challenges, but ultimately, what is created is the opportunity to seeing people's humanity and simply presenting them with Robert Chelsea as well as the Robert Chelsea Foundation. And so it's been an amazing journey in my month and a half officially with the team. But at the same time, I've been able to be blessed to see a side of humanity that I don't think I would have been able to do that. And so we're just looking to show and help people see this side of the humanity where people in the disabled diasporas live through every day.
That's wonderful. Back to you, Robert. With all of the work that you've done so far, can you share a particularly impactful story from your advocacy work?
Impactful. You know, that's a good word. I don't know how to quantify that. I use terms, as I mentioned to you before, he that has an ear to hear, let him hear. I hope that God's word does not turn void. And if I can do something that's within his will, then the impact is going to be far greater. I discovered when I was I just come out the coma, that was almost 11 years ago, and because my lips were burned off and my tongue, part of my tongue and all, I did have a one-on-one talk with our Heavenly Father, you know, once I discovered, you know, what others were seeing and how severe my burns and all. So I asked the Lord, well, you know, all that you treated me, how you cared for me and loved me. I can't help but keep sharing it. But how do I do it? I have no lips. I don't have, you know, what do you have some plans that you can share with me on what I'm supposed to do? What's my next step? And as I'm venting, I'm complaining, you know, I'm inquiring, well, Lord, what, you know, how? Clearly, you don't want me to do any song and dance and all that. My lips are all burned up. And while I'm doing all this complaining, I heard a voice. It said, kindness. That's what he said, kindness. And immediately I realized, wow, you sure got some wonderful ways. God was showing me that it wasn't the impact that I had on others. It was the impact that would get me closer to him. And hopefully my little light would shine. And that is not to be Robert, but to be another Robert. Isaiah said, come up hither, come up higher. And another place it said, there's a way and there's a highway. See? Paul said, I press toward the mark of the prize of the higher calling. Well, you already saving people and healing people. What more mark could you get? God has a way of making a man holy. And he was showing me that I wasn't there yet. So the greatest impact is that now I have a way, not with a song and dance or with any audible expressions, but kindness. And loving kindness has he drawn us to. Mm-hmm. And so that has been a great revelation for me, that I don't get comfortable in myself. That is the great, you know, we could easily say, well, we're doing this and we got this achieved and we've successfully done. But I'm so glad that, if you will, this mission is not close to getting over, because it just opened up a new dimension for me.
Yeah.
To enjoy. See? My hope is it will be an influence enough for somebody else to come on board too.
Kane, how can people get involved with or support these two foundations and other related causes?
There's many ways. The first is to go to the website, robertchelsea.org is one way to contact us, and in getting involved in Donor's Dream. as well, donorsdream.org. So these are first our primary ways. There's just so many conversations that we're having where we are making impacts when Robert steps out the door. Just people, the ability for people to see him is one thing. This Robert has a unique face. Robert has a unique story, and so he's making impact just just by walking, and allowing him to see himself. And so that's one thing. Um, Getting involved, there's there's diasporas all over the world, and what's really critical is that the communication increases, not only about their particular diaspora or challenge, but to work together. I know firsthand, um, is that we've inspired people to form their own nonprofit organizations, to create their own networks and affiliations by geography or by ethnicity. And so those are the encouraging ways that I've seen impact in such a short time. Um, so again, while we are a small but mighty team, we've been able to impact, and have, speeches with the United Nations and health officials and ministers of health across the world.
That is wonderful. Last question for you, Robert, is if there is somebody who is listening to this podcast right now who has gone through a similar traumatic experience like you did, based on what life has taught you up until this point, what three nuggets of wisdom can you share? What inspiration can you share with somebody who's going through a similar challenge to what you went through?
Well, there's in our patience possess ye your soul. In our patience, and not just, oh well, I'll wait around, I'll just see what happens. See, that would be a part of your iniquity, because you're not going to go that long. Just when, and depending on the circumstances and the conditions or individuals you're dealing with. But there is if I suggest getting a good set of knee pads, would be the first thing, and that is to get humble among ourselves, because the resources are not going to come from the knucklehead next door. It really, just like anyone else, you as a parent, you really want your child to touch base with you. See? You may not have all the answers, but your answers are better than anybody else's around. See? And how much more if we have our Heavenly Father to turn to? And so I know that doesn't seem to be popular. Some, especially others, whether it's physicians or otherwise, they'll say, well, the only thing we can do is pray, as if that's the lowest opportunity, the lowest percentage. And I assure you, that's the greatest that you can do. Finally, you're getting a degree of wisdom. See? You can have all the knowledge in the world, but without the proper application of that knowledge, it's not wisdom. It won't profit as much. So I think we have to find ourselves allowing our sources to be first in our own personal bedroom or closet. Then the advice that you get from others, God can bring that way, like you. I mean, how can I meet you from? But He has a way of using His creation. You don't want to hear it, I know, but that is His way. Man doesn't want to hear it. Go everywhere else, pay all the, and He is just that simple to love you and wait on you. So why not you be patient enough to wait on Him? See? I gained that much confidence. So I think an individual that may be going through these challenges, there's a lot of butts in the road. Well, but I can't. It's not well, but you're still here. in spite of what you couldn't and what you thought was inevitable, no hope, yet you're still here to hear this word. You can trust our Heavenly Father.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's been an absolute honor having the privilege to interview you today. And Kane, thank you for all of the support, the help that you're bringing to Robert's story. Thank you for putting strategies in place to amplify his voice and his mission as he takes this mission globally. So today you've got exposure to people in Australia, in New Zealand, here in Australasia. I'm hoping that there will be a ripple effect that comes out of this interview. Thank you both so much.
Could I leave just one thought real quick?
Yes, sure.
Well, two thoughts. One is integrity, talent, or intelligence are meaningless without a sweet spirit endowed in kindness. You can't get around that and be effective. Integrity, talent, or intelligence. It just doesn't have, it won't hold water very long unless there's a sweet spirit endowed in kindness to deliver your abilities and talents. And my last thought, and why we feel that this is a global issue, is if one size doesn't fit all, neither should one culture or color be a benchmark for everyone. One size doesn't fit all. So why inhibit one or only zero in on one culture or color? Otherwise, you wouldn't be successful. And so I'm glad that God can open these doors and give you individuals certain minds and you found it rather easy to do, considering. I mean, there's obviously bottlenecks in the road, but look at what you. So I hope that more of us won't rely on one size or one culture, but expose it to all cultures because everyone can benefit.
That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of people from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, to empower you with knowledge, and to celebrate our diversity. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Gentlemen, thank you again for the interview.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely